Hi there, good morning. This is Heather from NICED. We're going to just give folks a couple more minutes to join, and then we'll get started with the Lessons Learned webinar. Thank you for joining. Hi there, good morning. This is Heather at NICED. Thank you so much for joining the computer-based testing lessons learned from operational CBT. So our focus this morning is to advise and help our schools that are new to CBT this year. We have more than 600 schools that are new to CBT this spring. We realize that some of you may have participated in CBT field testing in the past, but we know that there are 600 that did not participate in operational CBT. So welcome. We are happy to have you guys on board this year. So we're going to go over, we're going to share a lot of great tips, lessons learned. We learned some great new nuggets this year during operational CBT that we're going to share. We're also going to go over a little bit about field testing, what do our numbers look like. We're going to prepare for field testing, some lessons learned regarding the prep steps, setup and organizing students, and then also go into lessons learned, best practices, things that we know that our schools need to know when the students are actually testing within the secure browser, which we also call the Nextera test delivery system. And then finally, just some quick troubleshooting tips, and then how do you contact us during operational CBT. So some housekeeping issues. There is a questions feature within this webinar, and if you click on it, you're going to be able to send us questions directly during the webinar. We'll stop from time to time, see if you guys want to. We have a small group here this morning that are helping here at NICED in the room, but then we also have a small group of you out there. So that's really great because that's going to allow us to let you ask us questions directly, right? So from time to time, we'll stop. And then Christy Tooker is here from Questar assisting us, and she'll unmute some folks so that you can talk to us directly. Okay, so keep asking questions. And you know what? If you have questions that you know already, you want to ask us directly, you know you'll have that chance. So we'll ask you to hold up your hand within the webinar when that time comes. So thanks for joining. So here we go. With further ado, I'm gonna, this is not working, of course. There we go. Okay, we're gonna be okay, folks. We got it. All right. So operational CBT. what did our population look like? We had more than 600 schools that administered operational CBT in nearly 300 districts throughout New York State. This represented 15% of all New York State schools. We were so proud to have such a great population testing on computers this spring, but that represented quite a big jump from the previous year. The first year of operational CBT, we only had 4% of schools that were participating. Those 4%, that represented 184 schools. And for the second year of operational CBT this year, every one of those 184 schools, they were on board again. So that's a testament to the fact that, technology, sometimes it can be tricky, but the experience on computer-based testing, it's a great experience. The administrators like it, the students like testing, and that's unusual for us to be able to say in New York State, right? So we'll go over some of those features, of course, that students like so much. So more than 100,000 students took their ELA tests on computers, and then many schools reported a successful administration despite the technical difficulties. Okay, so there were a few. There are more than 70,000 students who took their math tests on computer. In the math administration, it went much smoother than ELA. And you know what, just so that you know, last year it was the same, right? So ELA just kind of gets the brunt of it, but math, hardly hear from folks calling in. Everybody knows how to troubleshoot issues and how to solve problems. Okay. For field testing, we have more than 1,200 schools that have elected to administer the CBT field test. If you're one of those schools, what you did is when you're ordering your tests through the NYSED online examination request system in the fall, you chose computer as your format for the standalone field tests, or what we refer to as SAFT. So the field test can be administered on any day within the 3-week field testing window. It begins on Monday and it runs through June 8th. Field tests consist of one session. The session is approximately 4 minutes, and it can be administered either to groups. We're going to go over what we call the command center model. You may be grouping students into the cafeteria or into the gym. You may be grouping them in ways that doesn't align with your instructional classes, or you may be using the instructional class model to field test your students. But schools can also select to administer the field test on as many days as they choose within the field test window, right? This is different from operational. For operational CBT, the requirement is that all students must be tested in the same grade, in the same session, on the same day, on consecutive days. It's a mouthful, right? But those are the rules. And we, for field testing, we have more flexibility built into it. And it's a relaxed, low stakes testing environment. And we want to remind our schools that if students do encounter an issue while field testing on computer, they can just close the lid and walk away. We are testing the test. We are not testing the students. However, it is a great opportunity for a lot of our schools to take that first step into CBT. But what we're doing is we're testing the actual test questions. Okay. So our first lesson learned from operational CBT, especially during ELA, we needed a better way to communicate with our technical coordinators and with our schools in the district. For operational ELA, we only had principal and DTC email addresses, and we direct mailed them when we had an issue. Since we had such a large population, this took a long time, right? We only had the capability to send 500 emails at a time, so it could have taken us a half hour to get information out to everybody who needed it. But then on top of that, the technical coordinators they're not collected through CEDREF, our database for educational administrators and schools in the state, so we didn't have their contact information. So for CBT Math, we created a CBT Math listserv. And in the first, we sent an initial welcome to the CBT Math listserv to our administrators. And then we asked them to let us know, is there anybody else that you need added to this listserv who needs to be communicated with if there's a technical issue, if there's a new known issue that's posted to CBT support. Now for CBT SAFT, for field testing, we are not planning to launch a CBT listserv. Instead, we're going to point folks to CBT support, and then also you can join the general CBT listserv. For For those of you, I should have noted, this presentation is posted to cbtsupport.niced.gov in the CBT resources section. And if you go there, you will be, and you open up the presentation, you can click on the link here for CBT listserv. It's an article on CBT support, and figure out, how do I sign up for the CBT listserv? We send a communication once a week that is CBT This Week, alerting our schools about new content, upcoming administrations, training, webinars, all sorts of fun stuff. So you should join that. Right. And then I mentioned CBT support a lot. So this is what CBT support looks like. This is the secure browser updates and known issues for 2018 container. We have different containers or sections on CBT support, such as frequently asked questions and CBT resources, video tutorials, a lot of information, and we post weekly, always providing what do our schools need. When we see trends in support or customer service reports, we try to go ahead and get ahead of that and make sure that our schools have that information right at their. Also, you can click to an article from this PowerPoint slide that alerts you and how you can sign up for new content issue alerts for this section. So anything that's happening on CBT support, this is where it's going to be, or anything that's happening during CBT staff that you need to know about, this is what's going to be. All right, so now let's talk about preparing. Well, first, are there any questions? No, nothing out there? Okay. All right. Does anybody want to hold their hand up? Do you have any questions directly before we get into it? Anything? No? All right, we're going to get on with preparing for CBT field testing administration. Okay. So the first thing that we want our schools to think about is we want you to develop a district and school communication plan. While NICED, we're communicating with folks. You know, we'll communicate with principals from time to time. We also communicate with DTCs. They're kind of, you know, plugged in a little bit more, and then RICs. But what about your proctors, right? Think about, like, how are you going to distribute the proctor pin if you have to change it, if it becomes compromised? These kind of things, you need to have a great communication plan so that everybody is well informed. And we need to make sure that you're forwarding any kind of messages, or maybe even creating, you know, cute little content information emails that you're sending out to folks in your school to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So this is just a nice little idea there. So lesson learned. Number one, the proctor pin can be hard to find on Nextera admin. We get it. Every year it's always the #1 inquiry to quest our customer support. Where's the proctor pin? And you can see here on this slide what the school information box looks like on Nextera admin. The proctor pin is essential. The proctor pin is that secret code that is going to allow you as the proctor to unpause a student's paused test session. Say if a student, we call it sometimes the bathroom code. Say if a student needs to go to the bathroom, this is what the proctor needs to type into the student's keyboard in order to unpause the test and help the student to resume testing. So you must scroll all the way down to the bottom of Nextera admin and then look on the left, okay? And this proctor pin is a secure material that must be distributed to proctors on the day of testing. It's part of their teacher's directions, right? It's part of their student login tickets. So the proctor pins, they have to have them on hand, and don't distribute them to the students. Students should not see the proctor pin. And if you can look here on the right, you're going to see some of my art. Yep, that's right, I'm an artist. So this is an example of a proctor pin that we've put on an index card. And when we talk about lessons learned, these are lessons that we're hearing that our schools are using, what they're implementing each year to make CBT better and to streamline it better within their schools. So this was a tip that we got, is put the proctor pin on a card, make sure and like mark it on the other side, do not turn over, right? and make sure that every classroom or testing location has an. And also writing the rules on the bottom of the card. Student's keyboard, right? So this is not for students to use, but only is for the proctors. And if it's compromised, who would you contact, right? Because at this point, you already know that you've got to have a communication plan if that proctor pin is compromised. So who are you contacting? Because the proctor pin can be changed for any school on the homepage of NextEra Admin. Okay. Index cards. You're probably catching a theme here. We like them. So the index cards being used for login tickets. This was brilliant. We heard of this the first year of operational CBT, and we've been sharing it ever since because we love this idea. So, and it really comes in handy if you've got, say, laptop carts, right? Your students don't have a one-to-one testing device situation where the student, that's that student's property, and the student takes it home at night. If you've got laptop carts, your students are using who knows what computer. And if an issue arises, say, and a student maybe didn't fully submit their test, and you notice it later on, you may need to find that student's computer, right? And open it up and submit the test. That's not always essential. That you must find that exact computer, but there are some issues. Say if a student's test session needs to go through recovery to recover responses, you're going to need to know what computer that student was using. So for next year, we're going to ask Questar to put computer name as a field in the login tickets that can be printed from NextEra Admin. But for this year, a lesson learned. Go ahead and add computer name and have your students write down the computer name when they first get handed the login ticket on the day of the field test. But then also proctors can use it to indicate if a student's not testing. Say if you've got a student who maybe is sitting in the class and actually is taking NYSA or taking Regents and or for some other reason may not be participating in the CBT field test. A simple way to collect that information is to have the student simply turn over that login ticket, write their not tested code or reason on the back, and then get up, hand it to the proctor, and then go about their day, right? All right, so now we're going to talk about the command center model. This is our favorite, absolute favorite tip that we've heard from folks in the field who put this into action. We had some large districts that did this, but you know what? We do this at NYSED. So at NYSED, during every CBT test administration, for the whole time, we gather in one large conference room. We have a board that we write known issues on, keeping track of who's called. We move my phone into the conference room so that folks can call me directly or call the hotline and get to us if you have any issues. The command center model is where the principal or test coordinators, they're centrally located, right? Maybe they're gathering in the principal's office and they're watching the progress on NextEra Admin. They're watching students as they navigate through the test. They're seeing, oh, Billy's, answered 5 test questions already. Oh, I think that's too quick. We need to check on Billy. And so then you've got those folks centrally located, and they also have a direct line, right? Anyone in the school can call them directly if they have an issue or they have a concern. And then you've got technical coordinators on hand in the hallways. And those technical coordinators may or may not also be watching NextEra Admin, but their goal is to help with troubleshooting if there's an issue with a computer device or with some hardware. So then we have proctors actively proctoring students testing in the classroom or the testing location. And the goal is that those proctors can still, walk around the room, right, and assist students if they need it. But here, this combination of the technical coordinators on hand in the hallway and the proctors actively proctoring in the classroom. So take the use case, the student's mouse doesn't work. The proctor is able to simply take that mouse, walk to the classroom doorway, signal the technical coordinator, whose technical coordinator quickly gets another mouse, they replace it, and they get the student resuming testing, right? And in this scenario, they're focusing on the fact that there are fewer disruptions in the classroom. One thing that we have always heard from students when they're taking the computer-based tests is they like the idea that there's fewer disruptions. They like the idea that they're not hearing pages flip. They like the idea that there's no rulers dropping to the floor, right? So we want to focus on trying to continue that, I'm going to call it a tradition of CBT leading to a better testing environment with fewer disruptions in the classroom. Now, do we want to ask if we've got any hands yet? I'm going to keep asking. Does anybody have any questions out there? If you do, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you, okay, at any time. Okay. All right, we're going to move on. So the examiner view. The examiner view, we at NYSED, we don't use the examiner view, right? The examiner view is available for users who may not have actual accounts to Nextera admin. Somebody with an account, like a principal, would actually walk in to a proctor's room who does, proctor who does not have an account on Nextera admin. The principal logs into the principal's account, they navigate to the tests page in Nextera admin, and then they're able to open a new window with the examiner view that just shows the testing status in that classroom. The proctor in this examiner view, they can't do anything, but what they can do is they can watch the status, and this page automatically refreshes every 60 seconds. We heard that a lot of schools throughout New York State during operational this year, they would display this in their command center on a large screen so that they were able to just watch as students took the test, navigated through, oh, look, Billy's online now. Oh, wait, Katie's not online. She hasn't started the test. Let's check in and see what's going on with Katie, right? Maybe there's a computer issue that we need to help with. So this was a great boon. We don't use it here because we all have direct access to Nextera admin. But when we heard so many schools using this, we knew that we had to share it. It's a pretty nifty screen to display broadly. Okay. So verifying student testing accommodations. We as well as last year and this year again, we want to keep reminding our folks out there to set the student testing accommodations early. You set them before you print the login tickets, and we're talking about text-to-speech. We're talking about read aloud by human reader, reverse contrast, all those testing accommodations that might align to a student's IEP or 504 plan. So it's really simple to view all of your students' testing accommodations. There's a report that one can download on the students page. So in here, I'm pointing to the cute little links there, and then you see an actual report. What does it look like? When you pull it from the students page, you can quickly go down and view, oh yes, it looks like Billy correctly has text-to-speech set. He's gonna be fine when he logs into the test. This is such a big deal. We've got 2 slides about it. Look at that. So not just double check, triple check your testing accommodations. We're going to look into a technical solution for next year. What can we do to help our schools with checking this and making sure students are have what they deserve when they sit down to test? Because if a student doesn't have text-to-speech, when the student logs into the secure browser, the scenario is that that student then needs to back out of the test. Then the school needs to call Questar or NYSED, and then we have to do what's called a form reset. Because for a lot of students who are testing on electronically on tests with accommodations, they're being served a very specific form. So think about ELA, where we had more than 20 different test forms that were being served spiraled within the classroom to students. So our students with accommodations have very specific forms. If they log in and they're testing, without the accommodation, they're getting one of those 20 other forms, right? But they need to have Form A. So that could result in a situation where a student's responses are lost because a student may have already progressed within the test for, 3 test questions. So again, please download the report after you set your student testing accommodations. But you know what? The day of field testing, download it again. Maybe even provide this report in PDF to your proctors so that your proctors can, again, double check, triple check, quadruple check that Billy is going to get text to speech when he sits down to take the field test. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about administering the CBT field tests. What are some nice lessons learned that we learned this year? First, this is the biggest new lesson learned that we learned, and we learned during math, the math CBT. There was a really kind principal who sent me a screenshot when his student was having difficulty accessing the test. And we hear this time and again, right? Oh, the students can't log in. The students are having so much trouble logging in. So, and this will always be an issue, right? Getting those babies logged into the test, it's a challenge, right? You're working with usernames and passwords. So let me just tell you a story about, the 3 years that we've had CBT in the state. So the first year, what we learned is that our students, they needed to be able to see their username or see their password. They were to use a term, fat fingering, right? The passwords, when they were trying to type them, they couldn't see them. So for the second year of CBT last year, we unmasked the passwords, right? So there's a little eyeball where the student can click it so they can see that they're actually typing in the correct password. Well, what we learn now is that our students also, that for some of those younger populations, those alphanumeric passwords, they were still tricky, right? They're having trouble typing them in. So for CBT Math, we made those passwords into numeric only to make it simpler, right? So we've continued to try and enhance the ability for a student to easily log in to the CBT tests. Well, what we learn now during CBT Math is that a student may be trying to log in, maybe they fat finger the password or their NISIS ID. They close out of the secure browser before they hit exit instead of cancel or instead of trying again. And so they're logged out, and then they launch the secure browser again to try and log in again, right, for a second time. That action, that workflow, what they just did, that will trigger the proctor pin. So now the proctor pin is popping up, and this is the pin that a proctor must use to help a student log into a paused test, right? So, and the proctor pin, look at these screens. This is the same user interface. The proctor and access code appear at the top, but a lot of our proctors and a lot of our students, they didn't realize that they might have been trying to type the access code into the proctor pin box. So what we're going to do here is we're going to show you some quick tips of how you can know this. Just by knowing this, hopefully, we hope that it improves the students' login experience during CBT SAFT. But next year, are we going to make a change? You betcha. Okay, so we've heard a lot of feedback from schools about how we need to change this, and we will do something, we promise you. Right, so take a look. The access code to a test session is 4 digits, okay? And make sure that you're seeing the word access at the top. If you have a student who is having difficulty logging in and he's trying time and time again, pay attention and see if maybe instead of the access code box, you're getting the proctor pin box. The proctor pin is 8 digits, okay? There's nothing else that's gonna signal that to you when you're trying to assist a student with logging in, other than, making sure that you see at the top whether or not it says proctor or access, okay? All right, so hopefully that will help this year. Okay, so any questions yet? I will keep asking. Okay? So, all right, so the proctor should instruct all students to confirm the grade level noted on the cover page of the student's test session. Okay, so we just want to put this slide here. This is always a lesson learned. This is something that's very important. So here's the scenario. I'm going to tell you a lot of stories since you're not asking questions. So another story, we had a student that was manually entered into Nextera admin. The student's name was Dan Meyer, not using real names. And the student had a brother. Dan Meyer was in grade 3. Stan Meyer, his brother, is in grade 4. Well, when Lois, we'll call Lois, the person who entered Stan and Dan into Nextera admin. When she did it, she accidentally selected the wrong grade level for Stan and Dan. She put Dan into grade 4 and Stan into grade 3. So when these students logged into the test, they saw the wrong grade level pop up because the test is served in Nextera admin based on grade level. So they backed the students out, they called us, we worked on it, we reset forms, and we're able to get Stan and Dan testing later that day, but that's an example for why it's so important to make sure that your student is being served the right grade level test. Okay. Another thing that we need to make sure that students are familiar with and proctors is the offline-online indicator. Okay, so students should only try to submit the test in Nextera if the Nextera test delivery system indicates that the test is online and the student is connected to the internet. If not, this is the students exit out of the test early before they get the error message that tells them to try it again. So therefore, we want all our proctors and our students just be familiar. We cannot point this out enough. We are working on an enhancement in Nextera admin that is going to allow the administrators next year to see offline-online indicators for students so that we're not relying on the screens on Nextera test delivery system. Okay, a known issue that we have is a known issue last year and is a known issue again this year. Highlighting and answer eliminator features, they don't always persist upon logout. We have been working, we worked this year to try and ensure that they did, but we did hear reports that they were not always working. So we want to make sure that you're aware. Students are going to highlight the test. They're also going to eliminate answers. They're going to pause it. They're going to go to the bathroom, and sometimes they may not be there. This is not a great scenario. We totally get that. We'll be working to correct it for next year. But just so you know, what does persist when a student logs out of the test are the notes. So the notes that the student may have made in the notes feature, they will always be there. And of course, any constructed response answers that the student has provided before pausing the test. Okay. So another new total nugget for this year is, and we heard this from many schools, they called us, right? When they realized this, they were so sweet. They called us, they're like, hey, you need to add this to your lessons learned. So review each test question for answer completeness. So let me go to the next slide and then we'll come back to this one and I'll explain it. So this here is an example of what the review screen looks like, right? So, and in the school administrator's manual, we have the guidance that a student should raise their hand when they're ready to submit the test, and the proctor comes over and they review the review screen together, right? And it's very easy, for the proctor to see, oh, look, Billy, you did not answer number 1. You need to go back to that. Please do answer it. And the proctor can point out to those questions. However, what we learned is that any keyboard stroke, such as a space within a constructed response box, is going to be indicated as an answer. Okay, so proctors are instructed to review the review screen with students. Especially for constructed responses, they should try and navigate through the test to review those screens. And I'll take a look at, this is an example of why. So what you can see here in my example, and this is from the question sampler, you too can see this today, I've opened up the question sampler and I typed a space in that constructed response box, and sure enough, you can see that 9A, that is the top constructed response box on number 9, is indicated as answered. Okay, so please be aware of that, especially because the field tests, it's all constructed response items, and we know our students are proud. They're proud of what they provide in their responses. We want that to be captured and complete. Okay. Any questions until now? Okay, just if you have any questions, just put up your hand. How do they? Where's the hand icon in there? Yeah. We have a question. Oh, how exciting. All right. Okay. Deanne. Hi, Deanne. How are you?
Hi, how you doing? As we've been going over the review questions with the students, I noticed some of the questions, now these are in the item samplers, some of them, if they are a two-part question, do show part A, part B. But if it's a multiple choice within the boxes and they only select one, it does not have an A and a B. Am I clear on what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. So the constructive response items are the only ones, and it's only in math. Only math constructed response items may have an A and a B. And, you know, I wish that I had an example. I don't think I do, to show you that there can be more than one answer box on a math question. And that's what the A and B is referring to. And so here, if you take a look at, we do have best practices and test tips out there from operational on CBT support. And in that slide deck, we actually make sure and let our proctors know that a math question may have multiple answer boxes, right, for a student to answer. However, you should know for scoring that a student can write the answer is 5 feet up in the equation editor response box, and a scorer for the CBT test will still see that. It's still counted. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else? No other hands? Okay. That was great. Thanks, Ian. All right, so let's take a look at our top troubleshooting tips for CBT field testing. These are collected every year, and the more that we inform the field and tell them about, you know, how you can solve issues on your end, the happier your students are going to be, the happier you're going to be, and you know what, you're going to feel a little more successful. We're going to empower you. Okay, so there we go. So make sure testing devices are fully charged. Wow. So this happens every year where students come into the classroom. They may have a one-to-one Chromebook scenario, for instance. They took those Chromebooks home over the weekend because the students, they were studying. They were working hard over the weekend, but they didn't plug in their Chromebooks. They figured, oh, you know, I don't need it until 2 o'clock in ELA class on Monday. It'll be fine. But the field test starts at 9 a.m. that day. So what's happened is the student is getting a low battery notification, and the student is getting booted out of the Nextera secure browser, right? So make sure your devices are fully charged, because you want your students to be alerted when there's a low battery, right? That's important. So, but now what do you need to do? You need to have extra cords on hand, battery strips, right? To make sure that students can charge their devices if indeed they come to school without them charged, but also remind the students, hey guys, tomorrow's field testing, you're testing on computers. I know you're excited, but please make sure that you charge your computers this evening before coming into class tomorrow, okay? Having extra testing devices on hand if possible. So, you know what, it's hardware, right? They're computers, things can go wrong. Technology happens, we get that. But we've heard from schools that always had extra testing devices on hand. And if it's possible, that they would just switch the Chromebook out. Billy's Chromebook, he couldn't log in, he's having issues, it wasn't launching the secure browser. Let's just move him to another testing device, and sure enough, it fixed the problem, right? So always try another testing device. If a student, you know, just can't log in repeatedly, you've already gone through the troubleshooting tips that we've told you, right? You've already checked to make sure that you're typing in the Proctor pin and the Proctor box and the access code into the access box, okay? And on that note, there you go. Make sure you're not confusing the access code and the Proctor pin, okay? Number one tip this year, guys. Okay? So make sure to turn on the Wi-Fi button on laptop computers. We had, before operational CBT, a lot of our districts took it upon themselves to run a CBT simulation. And this helped them identify maybe Chromebooks or iPads where the sound wasn't working for students who might be testing on text-to-speech. and all sorts of other issues, maybe a mouse not working. But also what came out of those CBT simulations is that the Wi-Fi button might have been turned off on the student testing device, right? So the student couldn't connect to the internet, the student couldn't download the test. What's going on? Check that Wi-Fi button. And before students access the secure browser and they need to test with text-to-speech, please make sure the sound is up, right? If the sound's not up, the student logs into the secure browser. The workflow is that student needs to back out of the test. The sound needs to be turned on the computer. And then the student needs to re-access the test. But again, that student's going to have to use the proctor pin, or the proctor is going to type it into the student's keyboard. It's nice to be able to let our students independently and seamlessly test on computers. So we want to make sure everything's set perfectly for them when they log into the secure browser. And a reminder for this year is that text-to-speech will not play if there's a problem with your internet connectivity. So we are working to correct that for next year to make sure that text-to-speech continues to work when an internet connection is lost. But if you are looking at the PDF, you can link directly to an article that gives you some of those pictures, images of what it looks like, what a student's going to see on their end. All right. Know your Wi-Fi connection. This is so important. We had instances from last year. We didn't have any this year because we talk about this in pretty much every presentation, every roadshow. We continue to share these tips because it's so important to disable guest Wi-Fi in your school. Say you're an iPad school and you have students that one-to-one iPad situation, they take them home at night and they're used to hitting that campus in the morning and connecting to the guest Wi-Fi from the library, right? So those students are connecting to the Wi-Fi, but you as a school, you took a lot of time to prepare and to purchase new hotspots for every testing classroom, right? So that only those 25 students are connecting to an exclusive Wi-Fi connection that's just for testing. Well, if you've got Billy in that classroom and Billy's computer is connecting to the library that maybe is in another building on campus, he's not got a strong enough internet connection in order to submit the test. To submit the test, he probably could download the test, he could probably answer the questions, and his answers were submitted to Questar via the Heartbeat, but submitting the test takes the strong, reliable internet connection that he won't have if he's connecting to the guest Wi-Fi. So try and make sure that those students are also only connecting to that Wi-Fi that's been purchased, especially for that testing classroom. And in the instance I'm talking about with Billy, Billy had to actually go in and he would need to forget the Wi-Fi connection to the library. Because even though you can reset it, and I'm sure some of you have seen this, right? You reset your Wi-Fi to make sure that it's connecting to the Wi-Fi like in your office, but then just magically it changes back to the previous Wi-Fi setting. Right? So we definitely had students that encountered that last year, but not this year. So for all you newbies out there, let's remember your Wi-Fis and check those connections for your students. Disable screensavers and other computer notifications. We do have an article out on CBT support that is best practices and testing tips. And all of this information is provided in a nice little list that could be used as a checkoff list internally in your school. But disabling those screensavers and other notifications, any time a notification, Adobe has an update, or a student's getting an email notification about, meeting notice, English class is coming up, or don't forget to submit your homework. All of those notifications, they're supposed to be turned off. Schools are advised that these things should be disabled when setting up and installing the secure browser on their testing devices. But sometimes folks forget, so it's just a great tip to look at that again before sitting down on field testing day, because the secure browser, it's never going to time out. Okay, so a student may be writing her little heart out on a piece of scratch paper to input then her nice essay into the secure browser. But if the school has a security setting that a student's computer goes into save mode, within 10 minutes, Betsy may have been booted out of the secure browser because of a security setting that was on her computer and overrode the secure browser, right? When in doubt, reboot. This is so important, okay? So the first step when you're troubleshooting any technical issue, reboot your computer, right? There are a lot of TV shows out there about tech people, and it's always a joke. Reboot your computer, shut it down, and start your computer again. You know what? It's a joke, and it's a common theme because there's truth to it. Computers, they can fall out of state, right? They need to be rebooted. They need to be refreshed. We've heard of schools that had kept their computers on for weeks, days, getting ready for operational CBT. Well, what happened is that students would see odd, unusual things on screen, such as instead of seeing the numbers for paragraphs in the ELA essays, they would see bullets, right? Or maybe the question number at the top of the secure browser was off when the student is navigating through the test. So if you see something odd on screen, your first step, try rebooting that computer. Okay. And finally, if a student has difficulty submitting the test, and we talked about earlier making sure that students know about their Wi-Fi, knowing whether or not their computer is online. But if they do have difficulty submitting a test, well, first of all, you know, it's field testing, right? Low stakes. You can close the lid and walk away. However, if you are interested in learning what's it going to take during operational CBT, how easy is this process? What do we need to do? You can go through recovery. And you can link to the article and a video that the Questar folks created for the recovery process. And this is a way to get those locally cached responses off the student's computer and send those responses to Questar. And then Questar is able to promote those responses back into the student's test session. So it's called recovery. And you can do this if you want to mimic, you know, the actual operational CBT, use this experience with field testing to figure all of these things out for next year. You can do this, but we will also, during field testing, as we do with operational, we will have Questar laser team members that are situated locally throughout the state in 4 or 5 different locations where if you have an issue, you can call them. You can contact us. We can help you with getting somebody to your school to maybe look at your computers. Now, I do want to warn you, they don't actually have lasers. There's no lasers that actually come with the laser team members. That's an acronym. Okay, so no lasers. Don't get excited about lasers. Okay. All right, so there's the contact information for Questar customer support. Before we get into the contact information, do we have any hands out there? Anybody have a question? Ask us anything. Anything. We do, great. All right, what do we got? Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I had a question in reference to the Proctor Pin and access code. I'll go back to that. How come I understand why the access code is visible and not hidden, but how come the Proctor Pin is visible? Because then we have to reset the Proctor Pin for the next day when we were doing operational for the ELA because all the students could see it.
Ah, no, you're right. That is a great point, Jackie. Yes. So, and we heard that a lot. So for those of you out there that don't know what Jackie's referring to, so get this. We're instructing all the schools that you have to have the proctor actually physically type that proctor pin into the computer screen, but we're not masking that proctor pin. So you're right. That is a problem. That's something we'd have to address for next year. Great point. Yep. Yeah, that's an issue we need to fix. So thanks, Jackie. What else we got out there? Anyone? Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Want to share with us what it's like setting up CBT fast? Any issues you're encountering? Okay. What is it? Okay. And has there been any themes with the questions? Okay.
Nancy.
All right. Okay. Let's hear from Nancy.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. We've unmuted you. You might need to unmute yourself too. Nope. Okay. Nancy, try maybe try again. Sometime. Anybody else? No?
The staff setup has been straightforward. I appreciate the accommodations and adjustments. That's one question.
Oh, great. That's good. That's, and that's a great point. She's talking about accommodations. Does anybody have any questions about text-to-speech, accommodations, maybe setting that tested codes? Here's a, I wish, well, we don't have the poll set up, but I'll just ask you. And you can, you know what, you can just nod on your end or shake your head if you know the answer. Do you have to set not tested codes for CBT field testing? Does anybody know the answer? Did? Oh, there we go. Great. Okay, so we can hear Nancy. Hi, Nancy. Do you want to ask your question before we answer that one?
Yes, I can get there now. Okay. Sorry. My question is, I've set up, the CBT is new for me. So I just set up all my teachers into classrooms and have activated their accounts, but they say they cannot see them. Did I do something wrong?
So what do you mean by they cannot see them? They can't see their classes?
Yeah, that's what I've had 2 teachers tell me, that they've been able to log in, but they can't see their class. So I haven't had a chance, because I started this webinar, to get there and see what they're seeing, but they said they can't see their students. So it may be something on their end. I don't know yet. So they should be able to see them, though.
Yeah, if you have 2. So what school are you in, Nancy?
Pavilion.
Pavilion?
Central
Okay,
School.
and what district?
It's Genesee County. It's I am both the elementary and the high school, and I've had one from each building.
Okay.
So I was going to look into it more, but I thought if you had the answer, that would save me some time.
we don't have the answer right off the bat.
So it just may be something that they can't see.
I do have a suggestion.
Okay.
When you created your teacher accounts, did you select the content areas at the bottom of the account page for them to be in CBT field testing?
Yes, and they're in the field test, and our high school is math and our elementary is ELA.
Okay, so Christy, what do you got?
So I just looked at your district. When you are setting up your classes, make sure that you're actually changing the teacher to be the teacher and not just typing in teacher.
Okay, I set them up in class. They're in classrooms and the proctor, so they should be able to see that, right? Or no?
You have them assigned as the initial generic teacher that came with the pre-ID file.
Correct.
So you still have to go to the class edit page.
Yep.
And change the teacher for each of those classes to be that actual account, that user account.
Okay, and I will work on that now. Okay.
Yep, and I think your teachers are active. Can you look real quickly and make sure she's got them as active? Okay, if they're logged in, so then you should see your teachers in the pull down menu on the edit class page. And
okay, edit class page.
Yep, if you do that, they should be able to see it. So you just let us know. We'll also try and check with you. Okay.
Great,
Nancy?
I will work on this after the webinar.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, we believe in you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Another question from Jackie.
All right. Is it Jackie again? Proctor access code. Jackie, same Jackie?
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute.
Okay, we're trying to unmute you.
She's self-muted.
Oh, Jackie, you're self-muted. Can you unmute yourself?
I don't have any more questions about it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that was the question.
All right.
Nancy.
Okay. We just spoke with Nancy. Is that a new Nancy? Is that Pavilion Nancy?
All right.
Okay, that's it. All right.
I want to talk a little bit more about the not tested.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so guess what? You don't need to set them, not for field testing, right? Low stakes, guys. And again, we're not testing the students. We're testing those field test questions. Are they good? Are they bad? Do students like them? Of course, we can't really get that kind of information from the data, but we do analyze how students answered the field test questions, because these questions one day, they may get lucky and they may appear on the operational test. So for that reason, you do not need to set not tested codes, but for those schools, if you're new to CBT, I really recommend that you at least try, see what it's like. How difficult is it? How easy is it to set not tested codes? But more likely what you would probably do for field testing is you would organize your students into class containers. You'd move all your students that might be not taking the test. Just keep in mind, if a student refused the operational test, that student is not required to be tested for the field test, right? So you're going to have some students that may have refused the test, for instance. You may want to create a class container on Nextera admin for test refusals. You may want to move Billy out of the active testing class, right? Put him over there in that container so that when you're in your command center or you're reviewing Nextera admin, you are only focusing on those students that are active testing. So you may want to play around with different ways, you know, how are you going to organize CBT for the best fit for your school? So not required, but I do recommend that you at least mark one, guys. See what it's like. Anything else? Nope. All right. Okay. So we do record these webinars and post them on CBT support within 48 hours after the event. Thank you so much for joining. We hope that all of you have a great CBT experience this spring. And then also, if you need to contact us, we do have a CBT hotline. You can also call me directly. And you should join the CBT listserv so that you can get our weekly updates. And then also CBT support. It's your one-stop shop for all your CBT needs. So thank you so much. Good luck.